Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
First down and 10 at their own 10-yard line. Tevin Coleman with some running room. Tevin Coleman down the sideline. Coleman, one man to beat. Tevin Coleman's going to go 90 yards, and Indiana takes the lead. Rando scrambles, started off the pitch, keeps it himself down the sidelines. He could go. Antoine Randall touchdown. Rory going to the single coverage, end zone, touchdown. He hits Cooper again.
Hello, everyone, to Hoosier Happy Hour. This is episode 242 of these bad boys in the books. It's just me today. After taking most of January off, I had a birthday. Life kind of got in the way. Seth and Bragg picked up the slack for me, so it's time for me to do the same. What are we going to cover? It's February. What are we covering in college football in February? Well, tomorrow, I'm recording this on Tuesday, February 4th. Tomorrow is National Signing Day. And I'm old enough to remember when this day meant something. It's mostly an afterthought now. It's, people are already enrolled, and, IU does have a player committing tomorrow. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But so we're going to give some team updates, some out, some in. We're going to go through a little therapy session. This is my show for the next 20 to 30 minutes, so I'm going to use it how I please. We'll go through a little therapy after we give some team updates. And then we're going to go through some coaching. I think there's some coaching updates that I want to share. Everyone probably already knows about it. It's more just commentary. The Combine, I think all the listeners know the Steelers are my number one team. The NFL is my number one sport. So there will be some IU representation in Indianapolis here in a few weeks. So we'll cover that. And then the Super Bowl. This past Sunday felt like 38 hours. First Sunday without football, without the NFL since September. And the day just took forever. It was a bad day, sad day. So that's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover in episode 242 of the Solo Brandon Hoosier Happy Hour show. And we'll start with team attrition. And some things, it just happens. It just happens. And unfortunately, I'm talking about Cooper Jones. I think we were all excited. We covered him. He was a Tom Allen recruit. He jumped around to both sides of the trenches, kind of filling whatever, when defensive line was needed, he was there. When offensive line was needed, he was there. From all reports, it seemed like Cooper Jones was a heck of a teammate, a workaholic. But unfortunately, he's retiring from football for medical reasons. This sucks. He was never really made an impact on the field. But for everything that I've read, he seems like an A-plus person. I hope he stays around the program. I hope he's an ambassador of the program, because that's what he seems like, the type of guy he is. The attrition I kind of really want to get into is because if you look at it on paper, if this attrition happened, say, 3 years ago, if this attrition happened 10 years ago, I think people would be lighting their hair on fire. I think people would be up in arms. We lost a Herald recruit in Josh Philiston. Absolute stud athlete. Came in, had position flexibility, had measurables off the charts. He went portaling. As a prospect, top 40 corner, top 40 in his position. from West Palm Beach. A lot of the things you like in Josh Philston's game. Track runner, 100-meter, 200-meter dash. All things you really wanted coming in. I know Bragg was super high on him. I was too. He never got on the field. I think things are just going to happen like this when you're building a program, when you're building depth. So it's a bummer. It's a bummer. And then then Jameer Johnson, Texas transfer, certainly put on some good game film. Had some blips. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for Jameer Johnson. Certainly not. And that's a bummer. You know, he was a guy who was a contributor. Was a for sure contributor for IU. And like I said, in 10 years ago, this would have been a big deal. But we pretty much did a 2-for-2 swap. I think everyone's probably seen Riley Leonard play in the past month. You ever see him in a couple games? I mean, left a little to be desired. I think I probably went on a little hard on him in Notre Dame Stadium. Definitely some sarcastic Riley chants from me. But for all intents and purposes, he brought us team to the national championship. And we brought in a guy who intercepted him. We brought in a guy from Northern Illinois, Amir Knightington, who's an absolute stud, who's going to fight for that number 2 position. And then we brought in a guy that I watched a lot. A guy that his stats won't blow you off the charts, but a guy that in the system performed very, very well. And that's Rylan Gandy. For those who don't watch a lot of Pitt football, I watch a lot of Pitt football being from Pittsburgh. So what Pat Narduzzi's defense does is it blitzes a lot, and it plays a lot of man. A lot of man. Corners are on an island a lot, and some bad tape is going to result from that. But Rylan Gandy is a stud. He's an absolute stud. Rylan Gandy, who through the portal was rated 87, 3-star, and then Mirion Knighton is a 90, 4-star transfer, 6', 174. I love Mirion Knighton. He is an absolute stud. Rylan Gandy also 6 foot. So, you know, Josh Philston, Jameer Johnson, both under 6 foot. Those two were going to be behind Knighton and Gandy. Do I know that? No, I don't know that. I don't know it. But if I was making a depth chart, if I was creating overalls in NCAA football, I strongly bet that Knighton and Gandy have higher overalls than Josh Philston and Jameer Johnson. And good on them for understanding, you know, that they need to go somewhere to get playing time, get tape on to make an impact on the field and possibly further their careers. So, I really wanted to hit on that because, you know, Bragg put excellently on the outline, Jameer Johnson, he put confusing to all. It's not confusing to me. Not confusing to me at all. Jameer Johnson and Josh Philston were recruited over by Rylan Gandy and Amarion Knighton. That's what happens when you're building a program. It just does. Again, Josh Philston was pumped about him. Jameer Johnson put some good tape, but you upgrade the roster. That's the name of the game. And I think we saw that in Indiana's run, right? Both against Ohio State and against Notre Dame, there was a need to upgrade the roster in the trenches and on the outside. Notre Dame's wide receivers beat our secondary one-on-one. It just happened. It just did, right? So upgrade where upgrades are necessary. And I think no position was as necessary as up front. Offensive line. We saw it in the Ohio State game. We saw it in the Notre Dame game. We got Pat Coogan, who will be playing football on Sundays. I'm not more excited with Coogan than I am with Mendoza, who I'll get into later. Just a little tidbit. But Pat Coogan is an absolute coach's dream. He is a leader. Going from Kadick to Coogan, it couldn't be a better handing off of the baton. Seriously. 6'5", 310. He might have been the 9th ranked interior offensive lineman. I don't care. I don't think you could put 10 guys total position in value that Pat Coogan is going to bring to an offense. In his leadership, in his IQ, in his experience. Pat Coogan's a freaking slam dunk. It's an absolute slam dunk. And we've already covered it, but I wanted to cover some of the other guys that we added in case you didn't listen. Because, again, it's February. But we brought in an offensive tackle who I think is going to play guard. Again, that'll solve itself out on the practice field. But Zen Mikulski, 6'6", 319, transfer from Ohio State, saw some time, but constantly rotating, hard to find. Hard to find any kind of solid position when you're just plugging holes because it's necessary, and they were decimated on the offensive line, which makes their run to the national championship that much more impressive. As much as I hate complimenting Ohio State, that was not my intention, but it's just a fact. And then we bring back Khalil Benson, which was huge. So we bring back 3 starters, and we're bringing in 3 starters. We needed depth. And I think this allows us. We have 6 starters for 5 positions, and we didn't really lose anyone from the offensive line, other than graduation, right? So we were able to retain the people that we wanted to retain, bring in upgraded talent. That's, again, broken record here, but that's how you build a program. That's how you build a program. Bragg does want me to touch on the overall rankings. Coach Signetti has said he doesn't believe in rankings, but I'm doing my due diligence here to the boss. The boss wants me to say we have a class rank of 38th in high school. And that's good. Top 40 in the country in high school recruiting rankings for a coach in his 2nd year. He barely was able to have a junior day last year at this time. Junior day happens in January, right? But he was a coach for a month for last junior day, and he was able to bring in the 38th best recruiting class, with some highlights of Brian Baldwin Jr., 4-star safety, Seonta Stewart, another guy in the secondary, Jalen Bell, LeBron Bond. I'm super excited about. He fits that shifty slot receiver, right? And then the guy that's signing tomorrow, Jacob Bell, he's got some huge high school stats from the Chicago suburbs. He doesn't really profile like Aiden McConnell, but if you want another Chicago suburb quarterback, went to my wife's high school, Adlai Stevenson. So you can go check it out, whether you use ESPN or use 247. Again, 38th recruiting class in kind of his first full cycle. That's impressive. One of Coach Sig's knocks, could he recruit at this level? He was recruiting at Indiana of Pennsylvania, IUP, for those from Western Pennsylvania. He was recruiting at Elon. He was recruiting at James Madison. Could he swing? In the big leagues? It was a huge question mark. There might be another sport out there with an older coach that maybe doesn't put the time and effort. I'm not saying he does or doesn't, but people are talking. All I know is he just brought in the 38th best recruiting class in the country. High school. Combine that with a top 20 transfer rating. He brought in 20 commits, a little less than last year. 20 guys. Not a math whiz, but that's, 20 divided by 85 is a little less than a quarter. And I think almost all the positions were ones needed or upgrades. A tweet went out by Jared Kelly of Peegs.com 24/7. He posted this today on X. I still call it Twitter because I'm old. But the transfer rankings just went live. Everyone got rankings. Indiana has the number 4 class in the Big Ten, the number 18 overall class. But listen to this. Indiana really didn't. Zach Horton was incredible. He was a blocker. He was a leader. Zach Horton did a lot of good things. But we really didn't have that playmaking tight end. Look at Tyler Warren. I'm not saying this guy's going to be Tyler Warren, but look at the tight ends, at Michigan State, at Wisconsin, at Iowa. Tight ends make a difference in modern day football. IU got the number 1 transfer tight end in the portal. The number 3 quarterback, and I'm going to talk here in a little bit why I think he's number 1. The number 9 interior offensive lineman, I'm saying he's number 1. I don't know the other guys. I couldn't name. I could look up the other 8. I don't need to. I know everything I need about Pat Coogan. And then Roman Hemby is a top 10 running back transfer. So number 1 tight end, number 3 quarterback, number 1 interior offensive lineman, number 10 running back. I feel like Roman Hemby has been, because of all the other players we got, has kind of been lurking around in the shadows. And Roman Hemby is an all Big Ten caliber back. Bragg and I have covered recruiting long enough to know, it was nice to get one of these guys. We got 3 4-star players. According to Jared Kelly at 247, go give him a follow. Also, if you don't subscribe to Peegs, the best $10 a month you'll spend, without a doubt. They don't pay me on. They're not a sponsor. Actually, I think Matt Weaver and I, have had some exchanges, good, bad, and different. But I can't ever stop talking good enough about Peegs, which kind of brings me to the topic that Bragg doesn't know I was going to bring up. That's sports therapy. And it's going to be a little bit of a rant, vent, whatever. But it'll make sense here in a second. Man, I don't know where it's from. It's from a movie. It's like, when your sports teams suck, you suck. I don't know if any of the other guys, girls sign on to that, but like, when your sports teams suck, you gotta feel like you suck. And I'm in a little bit of a rut. I'm not gonna lie. My Steelers lost 5 in a row. Haven't won a playoff game in 8 years. Got no quarterback. In my opinion, got a coach that's got to go, have unmotivated leadership. So the Steelers just made me sad. Pittsburgh Penguins, who I've seen 3 Stanley Cup victories, haven't been relevant in half a decade. One of the worst teams in all of hockey. The Pittsburgh Pirates have the number 1 pitcher in baseball. I don't care what you say. So far, they've spent $10 million in free agency. They've gotten 3 players all of offseason, and one of them was re-signing Andrew McCutchen for $5 million. So the Pirates always stink. They're always sad. There's no difference there. But like Paul Skeens, generational player, time to spend money. So it's sad. And then there's plenty of IU basketball podcasts. But IU basketball is probably my second favorite sport. Steelers won, probably a distant second. IU basketball, and that every night's sad. I'm gonna stay up till 11:30 midnight watching this freaking Wisconsin game. They're gonna beat us by 20, so it's just sad. But you know what my savior is? What universe are we in? My savior is Indiana football. I'm not cruising Twitter to try to find Steeler updates, or I'm not cruising inside the hall and trying to check out what recruits are visiting or not. You know where I'm going? I'm going to Peegs.com, reading portal discussions in February. I'm reading ESPN scouting reports on the Mandalorian. I'm watching YouTube clips of Tyler Morris, Roman Hemby. That's IU football is my personal sports savior right now as we sit on February 4th, 2025. Isn't that wild? That's wild to me that I'm watching Tyler Morris, our new slot receiver, putting Alabama NFL players on skates. That's what I'm watching. I'm not watching Penguins NHL trade deadline rumors. Not listening to those podcasts. I'm not looking up bracketology to figure out if Indiana's going to be a 4 seed or 5 seed. I'm not getting excited about the NFL draft and the combine for the Steelers. You know what I'm most excited about? Indiana football. Wild times. And I think that shows you the power of sports and why we're fans, short for fanatics. And look what Sig's done. Sig's been here 14 months. Not even 14 months. And he has me having IU football the most excited about. I hope you guys feel the same way. I didn't think I could get any higher on Indiana football. I really didn't. Really didn't. And then we went and signed Pat Coogan. Right. Now I'm watching his clips of him hyping up the offensive line. I think that was before. I think it was the semifinal game. May have been the quarterfinal game. I think it was a semifinal game. I'm watching Mendoza's win over his rival when in the 98-yard drive. You guys don't know what I'm talking about. You guys are all just as crazy as I am. Coach Sig and the Indiana Hoosiers are saving me from being the saddest sports fan that maybe I've ever been. But the shining light is Indiana football. Last thing I want to touch on before we get into a promo is IU players in the combine. Curtis Rourke, he'll be there. He'll be throwing. I think actually his knee. I don't know. He'll definitely be there. Probably to maybe do some physicals, do the Wonderlick. I'm actually not 100% sure with his knee. It actually probably doesn't make sense if he plays. But Curtis Rourke is going to get drafted. He's going to get drafted. So keep tabs on him. CJ West and Trey Wettig, though, guys in the trenches, things that kind of IU has missed ever since I've been an IU football fan for a decade and a half. CJ West absolutely turning heads, turning himself into a professional player, which is incredible. He was only at IU for a year. Look what IU was able to turn him into. I mean, a lot of that was already there, so I'm going to say IU turned him into it. IU highlighted him. That's probably the better way to say it. IU put him in a position to highlight his skills. It's a way better way of putting it. And then Trey Wettig, I don't know if he'll get drafted, but he'll be on radars. He has a great PFF score. I think he'll test really well. Similar situation to CJ West. Came to Indiana, was under Coach Bob Bostad, and we were able to highlight his strengths. And he was able to showcase, which he continues to do. I'll also be remiss if I don't bring up what Bragg is calling Seth's nightmare. He may have some more information on that than I do. But there's been some defensive coordinator openings. Penn State, Clemson, Ohio State, and Indiana was able to retain Bryant Haynes. Huge. We signed him to a 3-year, $1.8 million a year contract a month and a half ago, roughly. but even bigger than the contract, which is huge. I think he's a top 5, top 4 defensive coordinator getting paid, maybe even higher than that. I don't have that in front of me because I don't have a producer. But again, I can't emphasize how important it is to have Brian Haynes and Mike Shanahan and fend off the dogs that are which is going to happen when you're running successful offenses and defenses. So I don't know about that being Seth's nightmare, but I'm glad it is. His losses are gain, I guess, when it comes to producer Seth. It's just some other things. I'm not sure Curtis Rourke will be playing in the combine or not with his knee. But Curtis Rourke is going to get drafted. He's going to be going to fall camp. But two guys to definitely be on the lookout for is CJ West and Trey Wettig. Though CJ West put on an absolute show, and I think it was the Shrine Bowl. So it wasn't quite the Senior Bowl, but it's kind of the people that didn't get invited to the Senior Bowl go to the Shrine Bowl, and he just turned all the heads. And then Trey Wettig, also, I think he'll either be at the combine or be doing private workouts. IU always has sort of a pro day, and those two guys I think will most definitely be a part of that, which is exciting. So those guys I think we'll probably be checking in on throughout February. And then when the draft comes around in April, we'll for sure be talking about them again. But I just wanted to talk about how CJ West was just an absolute dog during the Shrine Bowl. And if you guys didn't see that, it's all over Twitter. So go and check that out. So we're gonna cut a real promo, and then we're going to predictions because there's a big game this Sunday, and I have thoughts because I always have thoughts. So all right, promo time.
This episode is brought to you by your go-to expert in the Indiana real estate market. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in a home right here in the heart of the Hoosier country, Garrett Lawton with True Blood Real Estate is the agent that you need. He's not just a real estate agent, he's a Hoosier fan just like you. And Garrett knows Indiana inside and out, from Bloomington to Indianapolis and everywhere in between. Plus, his personalized service makes the buying and selling process smooth and stress-free. So if you're ready to make a move, give Garrett a call at 317-410-8851 or visit his website at lawton-realty.com.
All righty. Super Bowl predictions. What about you guys? I wish it was any other team. I was rooting for the Bills and the Commanders. I couldn't pick two teams. I was rooting for the Lions. The Lions Bills, I think, was like my dream Super Bowl. Two teams that honestly have never been there. So that's who I was pulling for going into the playoffs. Obviously, didn't happen. We got the Chiefs, we got the Eagles, and I hate Philly. Not as much as Baltimore, but I hate Philly. You know what Philly's really good at? Making Boston look good. The only people worse than the massholes are people from Philly. So I hope the Eagles lose by 100. It sucks that I'm pulling for the Chiefs. Actually had this conversation. I think I'm alone in this argument. But I'm not quite sure when the NFL fans particularly turned on the Chiefs. You know, I think Andy Reid's super likable. I think the city of Kansas City is awesome. I think their fans are awesome. Arrowhead is an absolute staple. Mahomes is what he is. I think he's turned into Curry a little bit. Kelsey and the Taylor Swift drama, I love it. My wife's a Swiftie. So Taylor Swift has played here often. I don't mind that. I think it's fun. They're having fun. So I don't have a score prediction, but Chiefs money line. I mean, they're just not going to lose. They don't know how to lose. I hate the three-peat. Sucks. It does. But take that with a grain of salt, though, because I hate Philly. And I'm the only one picking the Chiefs. Bragg has the Eagles 27-24. And Seth, I'm not scrolling all the way back in text, but I think he said the Chiefs roll. I think, he said the Eagles roll. He says the Eagles or the Chiefs have been playing with fire all year. They've They barely squeaked one out. They're playing a superior team. Eagles are really good. Their offensive and defensive line is just insane with talent, which is not wrong. I think the Eagles are the more talented team, but Andy Reid is going to coach circles around Sirianni. Mahomes is so much better than Jalen Hurts. If it comes down to a one-score game, fourth quarter, you just can't pick up against the best player in the world, that is Patrick Mahomes, and you can't bet against Andy Reid, who's been there and done that, right? So I'm picking the Chiefs. I think they're -1.5. I haven't looked. It's Tuesday. 5 days till the Super Bowl. But I'd lay the points. It's 1.5. I'd lay it. I'll maybe even tease it up to 2.5. But it's going to be sad. I think I said at the start of the show, man, this past Sunday with no football, it felt like a 38-hour day. I didn't know what to do with my hands. I was watching, Memphis and Rice, I think. Who else was on? Tulane and someone? Shout out Caleb Banks. Man, it's going to be a sad day, bad day when after Super Bowl Sunday. At least for me, for diehard NFL fans like myself. But that's why we got Indiana football. That's why you guys got the Hoosier Happy Hour podcast. Thank you so much for putting up with me for almost 30 minutes. 30-minute solo pod. Hopefully we don't have too many of these in the off season. But again, there's so much fun stuff going on. I didn't touch on Fernando Mendoza. I think I actually want to talk to the guys about that. He did a podcast with the Hoosier Hysterics. He did a podcast with the Hoosier Connect. I think our thoughts on the Hysterics have been pretty public. But Fernando Mendoza is an impressive human. Just the way he talks, the way he thinks. Go listen to both those podcasts. They're both really, really well done. There's video and audio for both. So check those out. We'll talk Fernando Mendoza next time we chat. Guys, thank you. Cheers. Have a wonderful week, a wonderful Super Bowl Sunday. And we'll talk to you later. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.